kidnapped a poor little girl, dared her to play piano, and promised, "If you impress me, I'll adopt you." What happened next left him in tears. But what really happened behind that moment? And why did one fragile child's music shatter the heart of a man who thought he could never feel again? Stay with me, because this isn't just a story about music. It's a story about injustice, redemption, and the power of love to rewrite destinies. By the end, you'll see why this moment was far more than a performance. It was a miracle in disguise. The ballroom glittered with wealth. Crystal chandeliers rained golden light onto polished marble floors, casting reflections like diamonds on water. Silk gowns rustled, champagne glasses clinked, and laughter echoed through the vast hall. It was a night of excess, where money and power mingled in every corner. But hidden in the shadows of this grandeur stood a little girl, small, frail. No jewels, no satin dress, just plain, faded clothes and scuffed shoes that marked her as an outsider. Her name was Anna, 7 years old, though her eyes carried the weariness of someone who had already lived a lifetime of loss. Her trembling hands hovered over the polished keys of a grand piano. She felt every stare piercing her skin, judging, mocking, doubting. Around her, whispers rippled through the crowd like little daggers. Who is she? Did he really bring an orphan in here? This should be amusing. And then came the voice that silenced all others. Alexander Gray, the host, the millionaire. Tall, sharp, his tailored suit screaming authority. His words boomed across the room with a mix of arrogance and mockery. "Play something for us, little one. If you can truly impress me, I'll adopt you." The crowd erupted in laughter. They thought it was a cruel joke, entertainment at the expense of a child. But for Anna, those words weren't a joke. They were a lifeline. Anna's life had been a carousel of abandonment and neglect. Left at an orphanage as a toddler, shuffled through foster homes where she was treated as an obligation, not a child. Hunger had been her companion, loneliness her shadow. Her escape? A forgotten piano in the corner of the orphanage, dusty, chipped, half broken, but alive with possibility. Anna's small fingers had pressed the keys with hesitant curiosity, and sound filled the silence that had always haunted her. She taught herself to play, note by note, mistake by mistake, until music became her secret language, the only way she could pour out her fear, her pain, her fragile hope. Now, in this glittering ballroom, she stood face to face with her only chance at belonging. Her fingers trembled above the keys, the chandeliers glared down. Laughter still rang in her ears. For a heartbeat, she froze. A wrong note escaped, clumsy and sharp. The room erupted again in mocking chuckles. Alexander leaned back, smirking with satisfaction. But then Anna closed her eyes. She imagined she was back in the orphanage, moonlight spilling across cracked floorboards, no eyes judging her, only the piano and her heart. She pressed the keys again. This time, it was different. The melody that flowed wasn't polished or trained. It was raw. It was real. Each note carried loneliness, longing, and defiance. Her body swayed, her eyes remained shut, and the room began to change. Whispers died, glasses froze mid-air, the mockery faded into silence. The crowd, piece by piece, fell captive to the spell of a little girl's music. For Alexander, something unexpected happened. At first, his smirk wavered. Then, it vanished. Her music pierced him like a blade, cutting through armor he had worn for decades. Behind his wealth and pride, he carried a secret wound. Memories of his mother, who once played piano for him before her untimely death. He had locked those memories away, convincing himself that emotions were weakness. He had buried them beneath greed, ambition, and cruelty. But Anna's music ripped the lock open. Suddenly, he wasn't a millionaire in a ballroom. He was a little boy again, sitting at his mother's feet, hearing the lullabies that once made him feel safe. Tears burned in his eyes, though he fought them. When Anna struck the final note, silence reigned. No applause, no whispers, just awe. Anna opened her eyes slowly, as if waking from a dream. She looked directly at Alexander, not as a beggar, not as a performer, but as a soul demanding to be seen. For a long moment, he couldn't speak. He wanted to laugh, dismiss, pretend it hadn't moved him, but the words stuck in his throat. The weight of his empty life pressed down on him. Money, power, influence, all meaningless compared to the purity of what he'd just witnessed. The crowd waited for him to continue the joke, to mock her again. But Alexander stood. Step by step, he walked towards the piano. His pride crumbled with each footfall. He knelt so his eyes were level with hers. His voice cracked as he whispered, "You've given me something no amount of money could ever buy. From this day forward, you are not alone anymore." Anna's eyes widened, tears welled, and for the first time, she dared to believe. The ballroom erupted in thunderous applause, but in that moment, it was only Anna and Alexander, bound by something deeper than any contract. He wrapped his arms around her gently. She clung to him as if afraid he might vanish. And though the world still doubted, though the path ahead would be filled with challenges, a promise had been made. Because adoption isn't simple. It isn't a fairy tale sealed in one night. It's a journey of battles, legal, emotional, and personal. Alexander would face ridicule from friends who thought he had gone soft. He would confront his own demons. Anna would carry scars from her past that didn't fade easily. But in that ballroom, one truth had already been written. The millionaire who mocked a little girl had been humbled by her music, and the orphan who thought she had no future had found the beginnings of a family. And this was only the beginning of their story. The American limousine purred as it rolled through iron gates that seemed taller than any building Anna had ever known. Alexander's mansion wasn't just big, it was colossal. Marble pillars, endless windows, gardens so perfectly trimmed they looked painted. Anna pressed her face against the glass, wide-eyed, but excitement wrestled with fear. For years, home had meant small rooms with peeling paint, foster parents who barely noticed her, and meals she often had to share with rats. This mansion didn't feel real. When the car door opened, servants lined the steps, bowing to Alexander. Their eyes flickered to Anna. Confusion, judgment, even pity. Some whispered, "Why would Mr. Gray bring her here?" Anna shrank back. Her plain dress and worn shoes felt like sins against the marble beneath her feet. Alexander placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "This is your home now," he said softly. But his voice carried a weight too. It wasn't a question or even comfort. It was a command, as if trying to convince himself as much as her. The first nights were the hardest. Anna's new bedroom was bigger than the entire orphanage dorm she had once shared. The bed was soft, the sheets smelled of lavender, and the walls were painted in warm cream. But Anna lay stiff as a board, staring at the chandelier above. In the silence, her mind filled with ghosts. The foster father who once snapped, "You're useless." The children who teased her, "No one will ever want you." The endless nights of waiting for someone, anyone, to choose her. When footsteps echoed in the hall, Anna flinched. Every creak of the mansion reminded her she didn't belong. Downstairs, Alexander paced in his study. He had won billion-dollar deals and crushed rivals in boardrooms. But now, faced with one child upstairs, he felt helpless.
Adoption wasn't a contract he could sign away. It was a promise he had no idea how to keep. On his desk sat a photo frame he hadn't touched in years, his mother smiling beside a piano. He poured himself a drink, but it tasted like ash. Her music, and now Anna's, had stripped away his armor. For the first time in decades, he felt exposed. If Alexander thought society would applaud his decision, he was wrong. At a gala weeks later, whispers followed him like shadows. Gray's lost his edge, one tycoon scoffed. Adopting some orphan? It's weakness. A woman in diamonds sneered, how long before he regrets it? She doesn't belong in his world. Anna overheard. Standing by the buffet, clutching a glass of juice, she heard every cutting word. Her chest tightened. Maybe they're right. Maybe he'll regret me too. That night, Anna skipped dinner and hid in her room. Alexander noticed the untouched plate and knocked on her door. She didn't answer. When he finally entered, he found her sitting by the piano in the corner of her room, hands limp on the keys. Do you regret it? She whispered without looking up. Alexander froze. The words pierced deeper than any insult he had faced in business. He knelt beside her, forcing her to meet his eyes. Anna, the only thing I regret is not finding you sooner. His voice cracked. Don't ever believe they're poison. They don't know what love is. If words couldn't always reach her, music could. Alexander had a piano moved into her room, not a polished concert piece, but one with warm, rich tones like the orphanage piano she had first fallen in love with. Every night Anna played, sometimes melancholy, sometimes hopeful. Each melody was a conversation she didn't know how to speak. One evening, Alexander lingered at her door, listening. His fingers twitched, remembering the keys his mother once guided him across. Tentatively, he entered, sat beside her, and pressed a key. Wrong note. Flat. Anna giggled, the first time he'd heard her laugh. Soon, their evenings turned into duets. His clumsy notes mixed with her graceful melodies, creating music that was imperfect but alive. In those moments, walls crumbled. The orphan and the millionaire weren't opposites anymore. They were family in the making. But healing isn't linear. One stormy afternoon, Alexander received a call during a business meeting. Anna had a meltdown at school. A teacher reported she refused to speak, then burst into tears when asked to introduce herself in class. Alexander rushed to pick her up. In the car, she sat silent, hugging her knees. Anna, what happened? He asked gently. Finally, she whispered, the kid said I don't belong, that you'll send me back when you get bored. Alexander's chest tightened. Rage surged, not at her, but at a world so cruel to a child. He pulled the car over and turned to face her fully. Listen to me. I don't care what anyone says. You are my daughter now. That's forever. I won't throw you away. Not ever. She stared at him, searching his face for cracks. Slowly she nodded. Tears spilled, but this time they weren't only of fear. They were of fragile belief. Alexander had his own trial to face. His business empire began to feel different. Deals that once thrilled him seemed hollow. His partners complained, "You're distracted. Family isn't good for business." One even mocked, "What's next, Gray? Story time instead of strategy meetings?" For the first time, Alexander didn't retaliate. Instead, he thought of Anna, her laughter at the piano, her small hand clutching his when nightmares woke her. For years, he had chased numbers. Now, for the first time, he was chasing meaning. Late one night, staring at his empire's financial reports, He realized money could build mansions, but it couldn't build love. Anna had given him something no stock market ever could. Months passed. Slowly, Anna's scars began to fade. She started speaking up in class, shyly at first. She drew pictures of pianos, families, and even of herself smiling, a sight no orphanage caretaker had ever seen before. At home, she ran through the mansion's halls with the laughter of a child finally safe. Alexander followed, awkward at first, but learning to laugh again too. One day, Anna handed him a drawing. It showed him sitting at the piano, clumsily pressing keys while she guided his hands. Above it, in shaky letters, she had written, "My dad." Alexander stared at it, speechless. His throat tightened. For all his billions, no gift had ever felt so priceless. Yet shadows remained. At night, Anna sometimes woke screaming from nightmares, memories of cold beds, harsh voices, and empty promises. She would run through the halls until she found him. He would kneel, wrap her in his arms, and whisper, "You're safe now. I'm here." But Alexander had his own shadows too. His mother's memory haunted him. Sometimes while Anna played, he would step out of the room, unable to stop tears. He feared he wasn't enough, that he couldn't fill the hole in her heart or erase the years of pain. Both of them carried cracks, and the question remained, could love really heal them completely?
Months later, an envelope arrived at Alexander's desk. Gold embossed. Exclusive. An annual charity gala hosted by the country's most powerful elites. It was an event where fortunes were flaunted, alliances forged, and appearances mattered more than anything. Anna peeked at the card curiously. "Will we go?" Alexander hesitated. He remembered the whispers from the last gala, the cruel laughter behind champagne glasses. Taking Anna would mean exposing her again to judgment. But looking at her hopeful eyes, he knew he couldn't hide her away forever. "Yes," he said firmly. "We'll go. Together." The ballroom glittered with chandeliers, golden gowns, and diamond smiles. Anna wore a simple yet elegant dress, chosen carefully to make her feel comfortable. She clutched Alexander's hand tightly as cameras flashed. Whispers began almost instantly. "There's the orphan," still clinging to Gray's side. "Does she even know how to hold a fork?" Anna's chest tightened, but Alexander's steady grip reassured her. Still, doubt gnawed. "Maybe I don't belong here." The night took a cruel turn when a rival millionaire, Mr. Kingsley, raised his glass and sneered, loud enough for the room to hear. "Alexander Gray, the ruthless tycoon turned babysitter?" Laughter erupted. "Tell me, girl," Kingsley said, turning to Anna, "do you know why pianos are for the talented? Because not everyone deserves to touch one." The crowd chuckled. Anna froze, her eyes welling with tears. Memories of the orphanage insults flooded back. Her hands trembled. Alexander's jaw clenched. Every instinct screamed to destroy Kingsley with words. But before he could, Anna stood up. Small, shaking, but determined. I do know how to play," she whispered. The room fell silent. Her voice grew stronger. "And music doesn't care if you're rich or poor. It only asks if you feel it here." She pressed her hand to her heart. A hush spread across the ballroom. The host, sensing drama, gestured to the grand piano on stage. "Why not show us then?" Every eye turned to Anna. Fear churned in her stomach. But then she felt Alexander's hand on her shoulder. His voice was steady. "Play for yourself, Anna, not for them." She walked to the piano, each step echoing. Sitting before the gleaming keys, her reflection stared back at her. No longer the orphan hiding in shadows, but a girl with something to say. She began to play. At first, soft, uncertain notes, like whispers of her painful past. Then stronger, weaving into melodies of hope, resilience, and love. Her music filled the cavernous ballroom, drowning out every cruel whisper. People stopped mid-sip. The same elites who had laughed earlier now leaned forward, eyes wide. Some blinked back tears, unable to explain why the music pierced so deeply. Alexander watched, chest swelling with pride. In her playing, he heard his mother's lessons, Anna's struggles, and their shared journey. When the final note lingered and faded, the silence that followed was deafening. Then, applause. Not polite clapping, but thunderous standing ovation. Even those who mocked earlier couldn't deny what they had witnessed. Red-faced, Kingsley attempted a smirk. "Parlor tricks," he muttered, but the crowd's reaction crushed his words. Investors and allies turned away from him, now praising Alexander and Anna instead. One elderly woman approached Anna with tears in her eyes. "Child, you've reminded me what music truly is." Alexander wrapped his arm around Anna protectively. He didn't need to gloat. Her music had already won the war. After the gala, in the quiet of the limousine, Anna leaned against Alexander's shoulder. "Did I do okay?" she asked softly. Alexander turned to her, eyes glassy. "Anna, you didn't just play, you healed something in me tonight. For years I thought power was everything, but you've shown me love is greater. I'm proud of you, more than words can ever say." Anna smiled, for the first time that night, a smile free of fear. "I'm proud too, to be your daughter." Alexander pulled her close. For a man who once believed he was untouchable, tears now streamed freely, not of weakness, but of redemption. Weeks later, headlines shifted. Alexander Gray's adopted daughter stuns at gala with piano performance. From orphan to inspiration, the girl who moved the rich to tears. Anna returned to school, but now she walked with her head high. Kids whispered still, but this time it was awe, not cruelty. Teachers invited her to perform at events. She had gone from invisible to unforgettable. At home, life settled into a new rhythm. Laughter at breakfast, piano duets at night. Alexander, once a lonely giant in a cold mansion, now found joy in bedtime stories, school runs, and a child calling him Dad. Anna still had scars. Nightmares didn't vanish overnight. But she wasn't alone anymore, and that made all the difference. And Alexander, for the first time in decades, he felt truly alive. Not as a billionaire, not as a tycoon, but as a father. They mocked her, they doubted her, they even tried to break her. But Anna's music didn't just silence the room, it rewrote the story. From orphan to daughter, from mockery to masterpiece, from a lonely millionaire to a redeemed father. This wasn't just a performance, it was a transformation. And perhaps that's the secret of life. The richest man isn't the one with the most money. It's the one who finally learns how to love.